sister in Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. I was living in her guest room. My possessions at the time were a computer, some clothes, 4 boxes of books, a bed, which was in storage, and a small stack of porn that I couldn't bear to part with. My wife had, for those of you that don't know me, I'm sorry to do your first introduction. Let's just say that. Come some other time and I'll talk about filthy stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. So my wife left me in the year 2000. She had moved out permanently, and everything sort of fell apart in 2001. And the reasons were the kind of stuff you're used to hearing, that she loved me, but she was not in love with me. And really what it boiled down to was that it turned out that she was not attracted to me. She realized that I would be a good husband, and so she married me, but she had a thing for abusive guys. So I think she had a moment of clarity one day when she realized, like, this guy who's always been there and taking good care of me would really be a good husband. I should marry him. And so she did. But then, unfortunately, we were having kung fu lessons, and one of the junior kung fu students ended up being this abusive bass player, which was just perfect. And so she ended up getting with him, and so left and moved in with the bass player who was living in his parents' basement while he was waiting for his band to become famous. So that's what happened to me. And it was weird because at the time I thought my luck had really changed. We had gotten through Y2K without a serious incident, which was a big deal for me because I was in the Y2K mitigation business. So the fact that we survived at the end of the apocalypse was important. What else was important at the time? I just bought a house, which was a big deal. I had the first ISDN line on the block, so I literally had the fastest internet connection that ever existed in history. And we were married, living in a house, and everything was really cool. And then it kind of all fell apart. And the bubble burst, both personally and the internet bubble. I had decided the best thing I could do at that time was to go work for a startup. Right? Brilliant. And the startup fell apart. The guy who was running the startup decided that what the world needed was an Amazon competitor. So, yeah. So that fell apart. I chewed through the remainder of my savings because I was no longer working, assuming I'd be able to find another job in the tech industry, right? Chewed through the rest of my savings mostly on lap dances because I hadn't had sex with a wife in a long time, which is basically any number more than a year. And but I didn't want to like cheat or sleep with whores yet. So wanted to at least wait for the marriage to become divorced and finalized, and so blew through all the money I had, and the house was foreclosed. So we luckily found a buyer, and the house got sold, and so I had to move in with my sister. Now, this was not the life I had envisioned in my life plan a few years before. I had been in college. I had gone to the University of the Arts to study jazz piano, and in Philadelphia, for those of you who are not familiar with it, and I was at the time studying piano. I wanted to go for a composition degree, but they talked me into going for a performing degree because I didn't have the greatest piano chops. So I was composing and learning how to play jazz and learning how to play the blues, which I'm playing a little at the moment. Now I say learning because I was really not very good at it. I mean, I could do all the crazy, bebops kind of stuff, and I love bebop, and I love the, white person's jazz, Bill Brubeck Take 5 sort of stuff. But I could never really play the blues, and I learned everything that you would do, I learned all the, the scales and stuff that you would learn that would supposedly teach the blues, and I learned the chord progressions, and I listened to a whole bunch of Lead Belly albums and so forth, and it just never really worked. And I was one day not playing the blues in the class. Now, I had a guy teaching me by the name of John Blake, black man from New York, one of the world's best jazz violinists, and he was amazing. He was like the coolest cat that ever existed. He never got ruffled, and he was always totally cool and level, and really honest, but still really cool. He drove down every week from New York to teach. If you played something really good, his general response was like, "Yeah, man, that's good." And if you played something really bad, his response was almost the same thing. He was like, "Man, I don't know." He was so cool that one day I decided to blow off class because I really wasn't in the mood for it. And then the next day I ran into somebody from the class, and I was like, "Did you go to class yesterday?" Because I blew it off. And he was like, "I blew it off too." And it turned out that the 10 people who were there to take his class had all simultaneously, without discussing with each other, blown off this guy's class. So when he showed up, there was no class. It was the only reason he came to New York. So the next week, we all saw him, and his response was like, "Oh, man, you guys didn't come to my class last week. Okay, let's play some jazz." And so we played some jazz. But I couldn't play the blues in this class, and I talked to him about it once, and I'm like, "Why can't I play the blues the way you like it? I mean, I'm playing, doing everything right, but it just doesn't feel right." He's like, "Man, you're playing everything too complicated. You know, it can be simple. It doesn't matter. It can be a single note. I mean, you got a handicap because you're white. Let's face it. But you can learn to get around that. You've had no tragedy in your life. So how can you play the blues?" "Well, I don't think it's necessarily." No. What's the worst thing that ever happened to you?" "Well, you know, I don't know. I just a giant white nerd. What? I lost some video games." At the time, I never had a real girlfriend. I'd been in a couple of car accidents. I had abusive coworkers or whatever. And he's like, "No, man, that's nothing. Like, have you ever come home and found your wife fucking your best friend?" "No, I have not had that happen to me." "Man, that makes you be able to play the blues. Or found out that this guy you know was on drugs and killed himself. Ever happened to you?" "No." "Well, maybe you're fucking your best friend's wife, and then he finds out and goes on drugs and kills himself." That's never happened to me. Well, someday something like that might happen. Because you understand what the blues are all about. Because, son, the blues are not about playing stuff because you feel sad. The blues are about this tremendous amount of sadness inside of you, and you have to let it out through the lens of your music. In other words, the blues aren't about the fact that you feel sad. The blues are you making other people feel sad so you don't feel so sad. So fast forward, and it's 2002. I just sold my house. I had been a couple of weeks now waiting for the foreclosure sale to happen, living with my sister. A few days before, I had just sold my piano. I had a grand piano that my parents had given me that I had had since I was a baby, essentially. I loved that instrument. It was the best instrument I ever owned, and I had to sell it. So I got no job, no wife, no peep with a parrot, my parrot that I raised for 16 years. When my wife got in the divorce, she didn't really get him, but my family hated the bird, so it was best that he went with people who wouldn't kill him. And I lived in my sister's spare room, and I had this moment where I'm thinking, well, let's be honest. I'm a single guy, kind of fat and miserable. My social skills are really not that good. And the likelihood that my life is ever going to change significantly is pretty remote. And in fact, my wife more or less married me, I guess it was the marriage equivalent of a pity fuck. So, and this was going to be it. decided to kill myself. There are two types of people who commit suicide. There are the ones who plan it out, and then there's the impulsive ones. The planners are the ones who spend weeks looking up stuff and going online and figuring out how best they can do it. And the impulsive ones are just the ones in the moment who just decide to do it and then just do it by whatever the fastest means as possible. I'm Italian and a musician and emotional, so I went the impulsive route. I ran to the bathroom in the middle of this night and basically just consumed whatever drugs my sister had in there in order to put an end to it. This is the first public place I've told this story to. So I consumed a whole bunch of drugs and then went to lie down and passed out and figured that was it. I was dead. Unfortunately, that wasn't exactly what happened, obviously. I experienced, though, as I lay there in the gray zone between life and death, a horrific wrenching sensation that at first I thought had something to do with me dying. But then I realized had more to do with the fact that I had just shit myself. Oh. And the reason I had just shit myself was because I had consumed the remainder dose of a product called Colon Blow. Colon Blow was a substance that was advertised on late night TV. And it was designed to give you these like horrific gut experiences with the idea that you would poop out all the stuff that's been collecting inside of your body for years and years, right? That's the theory. And they had all these advertisements about how, you know, you're going to poop stuff, and you're going to see keys come out of your body. All of the red meat you hadn't eaten for years, it's all been saved up in there, and you're going to poop it all. It's going to be amazing. You're going to feel like so clean afterwards. And my sister and I, being that kind of people who found this interesting, decided we were going to do the Colon Blow experience. So we bought Colon Blow and then spent the weekend before doing Colon Blow, which is not eating and eating the Colon Blow tablets and drinking the Colon Blow liquid, and then pooping a lot. And we went the extreme route where we were both of us pooping into sieves so we could look at our poop. Ew. And in the hopes, right, of finding something amazing in our poop. But all the crazy ropey stuff that they show you in the Colon Blow commercials turns out to basically just be the cellulose from the Colon Blow, but it does make you poop. And so I consumed all these drugs, of which was a healthy dose of Colon Blow, and through a combination of the fact that I was very heavy, heavier than I am now, and I had consumed a large amount of absorptive cellulose, enough of the drugs got pooped out of my system or absorbed in the cellulose that I did not die. But I was still really fucked up and pooping on myself. So I dragged myself into the bathroom now that I had failed to commit suicide with all the other failures, and was in there trying the best to clean myself off and poop. When my sister bangs on the door, she's oblivious to all of this to this day, and to remind me that I had left a note on the door because I had a piano lesson to give in about half an hour. Because I had started trying to take student piano lessons to afford some pocket money. So I cleaned myself up the best I could, and half stoned and sick, walked a mile down the street to where I was giving one of my first piano lessons. A very ritzy house in the nice part of nearby the Leg Harbor, with this 12-year-old girl wearing her pink t-shirt and wanting to play music, and this dirty, unshaven, big, fat guy that she's never seen before. Her parents hired me from the newspaper ads. They'd never seen me before. Wearing sunglasses because it's too bright. Smelling like whatever I smelled like. Comes staggering in to give her a piano lesson. Now, even in my state, it's very important to drill the fundamentals. So we were going over the basics of harmony and so forth. Was trained classically, and she didn't like it because she just wanted to start playing stuff. Which, she's a kid, of course, so should have known better. But I'm not in the mood for this. So I'm just like, you listen, and I was just like, listen, just do what I fucking tell you. Play the stuff. This isn't me at my best. Just play it, don't talk back, you little shit. Play the piano. And so she's like kind of half sassy and kind of half now starting to get scared. And she's just like, I don't want to play this kind of classical stuff. I just want to play rock and roll. I want to play this, I want to play that. I want to play the blues. And she was thinking like maybe Stevie Ray Vaughan blues or whatever. And I was like, you want to play the blues? You want to play the blues, you little shit? What's ever happened to you? You little white girl living out in the suburbs. Like what? Like one of your Barbies turned out to be a lesbian? Oh no! What, did they cancel Dawson's Creek? Like what's the worst that ever happened to you? Unless your dad's been molesting you, I don't think anything bad's happened to you. Less than 12 hours ago, I just tried to kill myself. So maybe after something like that happens to you, you can talk to me about that. So I pushed her off her bench. And I was so stoned I couldn't really play anything complicated, so it was just a little taste was mostly just something like listening to me on the sofa. And that was the end of the lesson, so I left. And I ran into her parents, who were watching the whole time. And her parents are very upset. And they're like, Mr. Privetera, is this how you plan on teaching our daughter how to play? You're going to come in here stoned and smelling like you just crawled out of a sewer and abuse her and ride her on the fundamentals every week? Tell her about the training of your personal life? Is that how you're going to teach her how to play? And I'm like, well, she wants to learn the blues. I can't teach her the blues. The best I can do is teach her how to be ready for when the blues come. But yeah, that's what I intend to do. And her dad gives me $20 and says, we'll see you next week. Thank you.